I have come to appreciate the value of the NFL center through our conversations with Olin Kreutz and through observing for these many years, and specifically the dream scenario of Justin Fields evolving like Jalen Hurts has evolved in Philly. I want Justin Fields to have his Jason Kelce, the guy that understands all the line signals, that makes the calls, that calls out the coverage, that is fast and quick enough to go out and lead on the blocks, that finishes with authority and finishes strong, that loves to be a center. And those guys have a tremendous relationship. And I think Justin Fields needs that in his NFL life.
I think he does too. They need so much, and Mustipher is a free agent, and I will be floored if he's the guy next year. And I don't think you can rely on Lucas Patrick with health, but they tried to give him the guy.
Yeah, they tried to give him that guy. They believed that he was the guy.
Who knew Luke Getty. Now, they didn't pay him a ton of money. They didn't make like a huge investment in the position, but I think that they tried. Like, if we went to this time last year, I think that they basically agreed with you
and thought they were giving him his guy.
And hey, we need to give him someone, especially as he's new in the system and doesn't know everything. We got to give him someone who knows the system as well or better than he does.
That's why we talked to him. We got to try to get to know that guy.
So let's go get Lucas Patrick, and then he got hurt. So I think that Ryan Poles, former offensive lineman, signs Lucas Patrick, one of the few positions he spent on last offseason, even if he didn't spend very much. I think he agrees with you. So I think it's a good position to highlight. I'm just not positive what direction he's going to go here.
I have some draftable guys that we can talk about. You've looked around the NFL and have some free agents, and I believe a trade scenario?
I got a trade scenario and two free agent names for you that I'll throw at you.
All right, but you want to listen to Olin first?
Yeah, let's hear Olin on the importance of the center position. This is with Lawrence Holmes on the House of L podcast.
It depends on body type and size and who he's playing with and what system he's in. But if you come down to it, is can you see the field almost like a quarterback, right? Can you process information at the pivot position like a quarterback does? And I almost like to call it like living in the matrix. Can you see things before it happens? Which is basically like pre-game preparation, right? It's a lot of film study. It's a lot of formation study. It's a lot of like knowing the defensive coordinator. And for example, what would he call on 3rd and 8 in the red zone in the third quarter? Like, I'm watching the game and I'm like, Spagnuolo's bringing the blitz. He's bringing it all out because I know he's from the Jim Johnson tree from Philadelphia, and I know that's what they do, right? He's coming with blitz zero at a certain part of the game, and guess what? Jalen Hurts saw it and got the ball out. So they studied for that. They knew it was coming, but that kind of preparation is what, because as a center, you're like a quarterback of the offensive line. You're trying to make everybody around you better, and that's by putting guys on the right guys and getting the offensive line moving in the right direction and getting the protection scheme all figured out before the ball's even snapped.
So that's what it is, right? Quarterback of the offensive line.
Seeing the same coverage the quarterback does.
Yeah, so that's why it matters.
Knowing situationally what the defensive coordinator might do, studying that much. And then, of course, like Olin is and like Kelce is, being tough and mean when necessary.
So how much do you think, like what type of draft capital or free agent capital do you think Ryan Poles is willing to spend on this position? Because he has said, and we saw it with Roquan Smith, that he, generally speaking, believes, like I do, it's why I applauded the Roquan Smith move at the time, of you can only have so many big ticket items.
Yeah.
That you should use them on premium positions. And while I'm with you that center is an important position, we don't think they have their left tackle of the future. We know they don't have their right tackle of the future. They don't have a wide receiver 1. They don't have a 3 technique. They don't have an edge rusher. That's at least, at a minimum, before you get to any linebacker. That's at least 5 premium positions that they don't have filled before you could even start making the argument for center.
Yeah, no,
right?
I hear you.
You agree with that?
I do.
Okay.
Centers, fortunately, are not always top draft picks.
They're
very,
not.
very few times they've been a first-round draft pick. There's been a few in recent years, but they're often a second-round pick or maybe even a third-round pick, and I'm talking about even the real good ones here. So,
but that's what I'm saying. So I'm trying to think about like where you think, because so like I'll give you a name that everybody will know.
Yeah.
Ryan Jensen
from Tampa Bay
is one of the best centers in football.
Mean SOB, draws penalties like crazy.
He had the knee injury that he came back from in like historically fast fashion, played in the playoff game. They lost the playoff game, but he's got a $15 million cap hit. They're talking about is he going to be a post June 1 designated cut? Are they going to try to trade him? He's coming off a big injury. He is 31 years old, but he's what Olin is talking about. I've heard Olin talk about Ryan Jensen as one of his favorite centers in football.
I don't want to pay $15 million a year for a center.
And I'd be floored if Ryan Poles would. And I don't think you would do it for a 31-year-old, and I don't think you'd have to because of when he would get cut. But my point is like, which route do you think they go here? Do you think they go, let's use a third-round pick, a top 100 pick?
Especially if they get a bunch. I do think that's the route that they'll go. The thing is, though, when I say we want to get him as Kelsey, Hurts has pointed to Kelsey's, quote, his knowledge, his veteran leadership, his experience has meant a lot to me.
Well, so that's why.
That leans you more towards the free agent or the trade possibility.
Correct. And so that's why I was thinking about a guy like Ryan Jensen, who if Tampa tears it down, and I forgot the guy's name, I wrote it down here. When he was out, they had a guy, last name was Hensley, I forgot his first name, who
probably Ryan. Doesn't it sound like a Ryan?
It sounds like it might.
There's a lot of Ryans.
Robert, you were close. Robert Hensley, who started, had good pass blocking grades. Who I was reading a Bucks beat reporter story this morning when I was prepping this, and he was like, I would expect him to just, if they move on from Jensen, he would just play and they would get younger and cheaper and still have some experience as they transition away from a post-Tom Brady world.
It's interesting because it's a great name because you've got enough money to do it here at the front end of this situation, and then maybe as he ages, he takes a little bit less if he's happy and things can be a little bit more malleable. But this is a team with $100 million of cap space, depending on what they do. If you don't use draft capital on the center, then maybe you do find a way to do that, even with that amount of money, if they decide the veteran is the way to go.
So here's two more veteran names for you.
Okay.
All right. One that I think would be pretty cheap, one that I think will be decently expensive. The pretty cheap one is Rodney Hudson. Rodney Hudson 4 years ago was the best center in football.
Yeah, he was.
He got a market-setting contract from the Raiders. I believe former second-round pick, was with the Chiefs and the Raiders. He had an injury last season, knee injury, missed most of the year, 33 years old.
I was going to say 33 years old, and he's in Arizona, right?
He was in Arizona, but he had the knee injury, didn't really play. But he, if healthy, is great. And we've seen offensive linemen, Jason Kelsey, you can be very good into your mid-30s if you're healthy. I have no idea if he is healthy. But like if you were looking for a stopgap veteran, played in multiple systems, smart dude who could be the anchor of the offensive line, like if you got a clean bill of health on him and were willing to take a risk on the health, that'd be a way that I could see them.
Okay,
I could see him kicking it around, but that is a stopgap measure. The other guy, and this one's interesting to me, and I admit to having not watched every single Minnesota Vikings game, but Garrett Bradbury.
That's a former number one first-round pick, one of the few first-round centers in recent history.
Right. He was, I think, the 18th or 19th pick out of NC State. They declined his fifth-year option, but then Kevin O'Connell came in, and he had by far his best Pro Football Focus pass block grade this past season. And so Vikings writers seem to be split on what they're going to do. He got hurt. He missed 6 games with a back injury at the end of the season, also came back for their playoff game. So he missed weeks 12 through 17. Some people think, well, they declined the fifth-year option, so they made a decision on him. But other people seem to be reporting, well, they made, I read an article in The Athletic this morning about him. Yes, they declined the option, but then he played so well and the offensive line dropped off the last 6 games that he thinks that they are going to try to sign him to a multi-year contract. But so that is a former high-end prospect who's only 27, who had a fifth-year option, declined, pass blocking grade got better. I could see if he hits the market, also has NFC North experience.
Sure.
Right. I could see him being a name where he's young enough where you would try to sign a guy like that.
All right. Well, I like the research. It's no surprise that the host of First and Pod has knowledge of centers around the NFL.
Yeah.
And I like the Ryan Jensen idea a lot if healthy. Missed pretty much the whole year, came back for the final game, as you mentioned. I've got 4 college possibilities I want to throw at you here.
Okay.
And then we've got a little bit more from Olin talking about whether these guys are built or grown. You know what I mean? So we'll hear that in a little bit. But there's a guy, John Gaines, out of UCLA, who people are like, oh, he can play all 5 offensive line positions, but he's probably best suited for center. Nah, I want a born and bred center. I want somebody who freaking loves it and has studied it and wants to do it. Steve Avila is a guy who's played both guard and center and gets talked about a lot, and he's might be the number 1 center on the list. But reading about him, he's not a consistently nasty finisher. That bothers me a little bit, and the fact that he started a year at guard and then a year at center concerns me a little as well. There's the guy from Ohio State, Luke Whippler, undersized but very athletic, capable of pulling and leading action into space like we've seen Kelsey do, so that's good. But a lack of size and length is something. Aware in pass production, but big bull rushers are a cause for concern. And really, the recap that I was saying is that he could become an average starter in the right scheme. Now let's aim higher than that, shall we? I want John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota.
John Jingle Michael Schmitz?
I believe so.
I'll write him
His
a jingle.
name was mine. Yeah.
I will write that man a jingle. John Jingle Michael Schmitz. His name is Shane's name, too. That happens.
His name is my name, too.
Wow.
Zone scheme center, good size, well-schooled in every phase of the run game, supposedly great footwork, great angles, finishes blocks with tenacity, plus football intelligence, makes the calls for his offense. He came back to Minnesota as a senior because he wanted to play with his guys and wanted to further things along. PJ Fleck was very important to him in the recruitment. And
what's his name again?
John Michael Schmitz.
Okay.
Jacob.
Yeah.
Jingleheimer.
All right. Well, so I'll give you one more variable here because I have not scouted the centers. I've not read the draft profiles of the centers. I was tasked with the free agent, the NFL guys. You were going to do the deep dive onto the college route. But I will give you a piece of intel from Kansas City. Creed Humphrey is arguably Ryan Poles' biggest draft jewel that he gets some credit for. He drafted him in this. He wasn't the GM, right? It was Brett Veach, but he was said to have had a huge impact as the former offensive lineman.
Like he found a
who
guy.
was his top lieutenant when they had the Super Bowl against Tampa. When Mahomes was running for his life, they're like, all right, we're going to sign Joe Thuney from New England, and then we're going to use a few picks on these guys. And they took Creed Humphrey in the 2nd round from Oklahoma, and then they took Trey Smith, I believe, in the 5th round from Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And Creed Humphrey was a guy who was a multi-year starting center at Oklahoma. So didn't change positions.
Yep.
And they used a low 2nd round pick on him.
This is what I'm saying.
So if
that tracks.
If Ryan Poles
here
had,
on Bear Tracks
or Poles' position, I don't hate Poles' position.
Texture said Poles' position.
It's not bad.
That's really good.
It's not bad.
And we could use the theme song.
Yeah. But I think that if you think, okay, he's going to do what he knows and what he's had success with, because Creed Humphrey, Pro Bowl as a rookie. Like he has been an immediately. They think he'll be a Chief for 15 years.
And here's the thing about John Michael Jacob Jingleheimer Schmitz.
Yes, sir.
Is that he was at the Senior Bowl playing for Luke Getsy. Luke Getsy got a chance to know a lot about him. And apparently there are other connections where that Getsy worked with PJ Fleck at Western Michigan for a season. And the offensive line coach, Brian Callahan on Minnesota, was also on that staff with Getsy and PJ Fleck. So if they want to do a deeper dive and really learn everything they can about Mr. Schmitz, then they can find that out. So I've got a big time eye on that. Would you use, if they acquire pick number 35 from the Indianapolis Colts?
No, that strikes me as too high. But the 54th pick, I believe is what it is, the pick you got from the Ravens.
Right.
Maybe that's the highest I would be comfortable with it. You're hopefully your second round pick.
Yeah.
Or your third round pick.
That is a great dream. I can see you with your positional bias being as upset with an early second round center pick as you were with a safety.
No.
Or a nickel.
Protect
Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Enable Justin Fields.
Justin Fields needs help.
If it's what they think is the absolute best center in the draft, and they know,
he needs help. You're not going to hear me criticize an offensive upgrade this offseason. I don't think it's on the board. I say that, and I did criticize the Chase Claypool move when it happened because I thought that was too much to give up for such little control of a guy who was so inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
But if he drafts an offensive player, I don't think you're going to hear me. I'll be very surprised if I find a reason to dislike it. I think I will be in favor of surrounding Justin Fields with offensive talent.
I think we'll see how it goes. Long way to the draft here on Pole's position, Bear Tracks. But if they end up using a high 2 on Schmitz, if that's their guy and they want to make sure they get him, I'm going to be okay with it.